This is Newsmax TV. I'm Ashley Martella, and we're pleased to be joined again by the senior U.S. Senator from Oklahoma, Jim Inhofe. He's on the Armed Services Committee and the ranking member on the Committee on Environment and Public Works. Nice to have you with us again, Senator.
Well, good to be with you, Ashley.
It was not that long ago that you said the so-called climate change bill narrowly passed by the House is dead in the water in the Senate. You still feel that way, and if so, why?
Yeah, well, more so every day. First of all, a little backdrop. You're aware of this, so I want to make sure that our viewers are too. I started this 10 years ago, and for the first 8 years, it was kind of lonely out there. The thing that's great now is I have all these senators who are there fighting it with me, and we're no longer doing it alone. You'll recall, you and I talked in the past about the McCain-Lieberman bill in 2005 and then the Warner-Lieberman bill in 2008, and how we defeated those bills. But the thing is, now we have more senators coming down, and people are now aware of the issue. The House of Representatives passed it with 219 votes. Now that's just one over the 218 that would be required. So there's a lot of arm twisting. All the far left extremist environmentalists were celebrating and all that. The Al Gore guys were just up in arms. They thought it was the greatest day in the world. And yet they knew all the time that there's not any way in the world they're going to be able to get that passed out of the Senate. Now we had a committee hearing back when Republicans were a majority. I chaired the Environment and Public Works Committee. Now it's Barbara Boxer, so you have a little different philosophy there. She's doing everything she can to try to get a cap and trade bill passed, but she cannot do it. I'm counting votes over here, and the most votes I think that she'll be able to come up with are 34. And of course, you need 60 in the Senate. The great news, the new developments are, when we just finished having a hearing in the Environment and Public Works Committee, we had Lisa Jackson, the administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency. I asked her the question. I said, you know, there are a lot of people out there who really believe that man-made gases cause global warming. I don't believe that, and science does not agree with that now. But if you do believe it, I have to ask you this question. What good would it do for us to unilaterally in the United States pass a cap and trade tax, which would be the largest tax increase in the history of our country, if we know that China and India and the great polluters around the world are not going to join in? In other words, our manufacturing base would go there where they could generate electricity, and they have no restrictions on their emissions. Well, I said specifically, I showed her a chart. I said, is it going to reduce CO2 emissions if we alone in America pass a bill, a cap and trade bill? She said, no, it would not. Now that was probably the major victory in the last 10 years that I've had in fighting this hoax that has been perpetrated on the American people. People are so offended by what this administration has been doing and spending that when you even talk about another great tax increase, that gets people's attention much more than it did a year ago.
Still the same, Senator. You know the pressure from the radical left will be enormous on Harry Reid and the rest of the hardcore liberal senators like Schumer, Leahy, Dodd, Kerry, Durbin, Boxer and company to pass this energy tax. Reid and Durbin will undoubtedly have their woodshed ready for renegades. Knowing that, do you think you'll be able to pick off enough Democrats to kill this?
You know, I think so. You know, let's give you an example. The Senator Begich is the new senator. He's a Democrat from Alaska. He has actually joined me in a letter trying to stop some of the 7 big tax increases that the Obama is trying to put on the oil and gas industry. And he feels the same way about this issue too. So we have a lot of new people, new Democrats, who really don't want to go back to their states and say, look at me, aren't you proud? I helped pass the largest tax increase in the history of America. They're not going to do it, Ashley, and it's because people are sick and tired of the spending and the taxing, and I think we are actually, if you want to get academic about this, I think we are ahead of where we were this time in the Clinton administration in 1993. Remember back then, it was the BTU tax, another energy tax, which would have been the largest tax increase up to that time. It passed the House by the same margin, 219 votes, and we killed it in the Senate. We're going to do the same thing with cap and trade.
Senator, have to get your reaction to this one. In testimony before the Armed Services Committee on which you sit, Obama's Assistant Attorney General David Criss says he thinks terrorists held at Guantanamo should have the same legal protections under the Constitution as U.S. citizens.
That is the most outrageous thing. And you know, I've also been leading the fight to keep Gitmo open. It is outrageous to think, particularly just a matter of days after one of the worst terrorists in the world, who had been let go from Gitmo because of pressure of the White House, ended up leading a charge and killing some of our U.S. Marines in southern Iraq. These guys, they're going to go right back to their to where they were when they were captured. And I know this because I've been down there and I've looked them in the eyes. What we can't afford to do, Ashley, is do what the President Obama is trying to do right now. That's bring them back to the United States for trial in our judicial system. For one thing, the rules of evidence are different. We have a perfectly good court system in Gitmo for tribunals, and that's where we should be disposing of these individuals. I can't imagine that someone could give testimony and say that Miranda rights are justified to give terrorists. You know, we need to capture these terrorists, get information out of them, and you know what the rights are that he's referring to? You have the right to remain silent. You don't have to ask and answer any questions. We need questions answered to save American lives.
On another matter, I remember you were protesting all along that the so-called stimulus plan provided no more than a pittance for infrastructure improvements. Well, the Senate passed the massive spending package anyway, and now enter Obama advisor Laura Tyson, who advocates a second stimulus package focusing on infrastructure projects because the first one was too small. Your thoughts on that, please?
Well, I thought we were rid of Laura Tyson back in the Clinton administration. When she was resurrected, I guess I shouldn't have been shocked after they brought back Carol Browner. But anyway, nothing surprises me that would come from her. The stimulus package has not worked. Only 13% of all the $787 billion actually was on something to stimulate. I had an amendment to triple the amount that would go to road construction, and it was defeated. Now that would have at least got jobs out there. But this stimulus package is nothing but social engineering and the enhanced welfare system. And so no wonder it's not working, and we don't want to put any more money in it. You know what we shouldn't have done, and this happened back in October of '08 in the Bush administration, we find out now that Tim Geithner was actually behind it at that time. But that's when we, not me, I led the opposition unsuccessfully, but Republicans and Democrats alike voted to give an unelected bureaucrat $700 billion to do with as he wished. And they're still spending that money and laughing at Congress because there's no accountability. So that's what's happening right now. It's a different environment. The last thing we need is another stimulus package that doesn't stimulate.
Oklahoma Senator Jim Inhofe, always a pleasure, sir.
Thank you, Ashley.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.
Homeland Security advises every family to have an emergency radio. It's essential for severe weather, power failures, even terrorism. Now Newsmax is offering you an emergency radio absolutely free. Just pay shipping and get the radio, plus a free trial subscription to Newsmax magazine. Go online to Newsmax.com to check out the details of this great offer.
Get your free emergency radio today. Just call 800 Newsmax. Make sure your family is protected. Call now, 800 Newsmax.